Hello everyone, welcome to Browns Insider. I am Dan Labbe. Another day of training camp is in the books and we're going to break it all down with Mary Kay Cabot. She is live in Berea. Mary Kay, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dan. How you doing?
I'm good. It was a chilly, sort of rainy July day, but the Browns were outside. The pads were on. First day of pads, what did you think?
Well, actually, I think it was more like a chilly November day out here today. I mean, it was absolutely freezing, and now it's beautiful out here. But yeah, the first day in pads, actually, I'd have to say, I thought it got started off like kind of on a little bit of a sluggish or slow note. They didn't do any team drills for the first hour, and gosh, I think it might have been 50 minutes of the practice session, which I thought was really odd. I mean, the practice seemed to need a little energy to me earlier on. It seemed like they kind of lost the fans, and they're getting capacity crowds out here. So it got off to a little bit of a slow start, but it picked up as time went on. And and Brian Hoyer looked good moving around. Justin Gilbert, I thought, had a really nice day today. Broke up some passes, got an interception over in some individual drills. Chris Kirksey picked off Johnny Manziel. So once it got rolling, there were plenty of highlights.
Now, one of the things we saw today in the offense was Johnny Manziel moved around a little more. We saw some flashes of that in the first couple days, but today it seemed like there were some designed runs for Johnny. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did notice that, and that was good. They actually did some read option drills off to one side for a while they were doing inside running drills on the bigger field today. But so they were actually spending a considerable amount of time on that today, and that was good. And Coach Pettine, he admitted that, hey, you know what, when it comes time to install those kind of things, that's going to be Johnny's thing. And Johnny got an opportunity to show a little bit of that today, and there were some mixed results. He moves well, you can see that, but then one time he rolled to the left and he was picked off by Christian Kirksey, the rookie linebacker. So he's going to have to figure it out. He's also going to have to figure out just how far he can go with being able to take off and run, because the defenders here will be so much faster than what he's been used to.
Now in the chat room, there's some questions the folks have already put in that they want to ask, and one of them has to do, we've talked a lot about Ben Tate and Terrence West, but a guy trying to come back from an injury this season, Dion Lewis, he's in the mix at running back. What have you thought of what you've seen of Lewis?
Dion is running hard, but what I find to be interesting is that he's really actually been mostly the fourth back up when it comes to taking reps. It starts out with Ben Tate, then it goes to Chris Ogbonnaya, then it goes to Terrence West. They're really making these rookies earn their jobs, I will tell you that much. Then it goes to Edwin Baker, then it goes to Dion Lewis. So he's kind of behind the eight ball. This is a pretty good running back room this year. We talked to the running backs coach today about that a little bit. And so Dion Lewis is going to have to really come on strong to make this team.
Yeah, you mentioned Chris Ogbonnaya. I don't know what it says about this team in general, but it feels like he's kind of been around forever. I mean, it actually hasn't been that long. But with Chris Ogbonnaya, he's a guy that's just sort of been able to hang on, been able to find a role. He seems to just sort of be a really useful guy. Do you think he has a chance to make this team, even with the upgrades at running back?
I think so, in part, because of a couple of reasons. Number one, I mean, he's a good hard runner. We've seen that before, so he's always good, to have around to be able to throw in there and get some tough yards when you need him. But he can also play fullback. So he's got that flexibility that if they want to mess around with the roster a little, they're trying Marquise Gray, the former tight end, as a fullback this year. So that's kind of an experiment. And, Chris has that flexibility, and he can also play some special teams. So, so I do think that he has a chance. And I think by virtue of him going, third and actually second right now in the rotation, I think that bodes pretty well for him.
Wide receiver is wide open, obviously. A question in the comments. How much do you believe that these wide receivers, let's keep Jordan Cameron in the tight end category, so let's not include him, are going to help whichever quarterback gets chosen to play? Do you have faith in this wide receiving group based on what you've seen?
Well, they're starting to come around. I mean, there's not going to be a superstar with Josh Gordon being suspended. It's not going to be that. So they're going to have to roll them in there kind of by committee. Mike Pettine has already said that's what they're going to do. And it's just going to be up to those guys to really step forward and, sort of take the bull by the horns here and show that they can be the guy and that they can get the hot hand. Miles Austin has been looking really good. He looks really polished. I mean, you can just tell, even though he's been coming off of, I believe it's been a hamstring injury, he's back in there now, and he just really looks like a true professional that can go out there and catch, 60, 70 balls a season if he's healthy. So, he's looking good. Nate Burleson, I think Nate's getting his way back into the swing of things a little after missing most of the offseason. Anthony Armstrong, he's looked good. And Charles Johnson and Travis Benjamin did not practice in pads today. Those are two guys coming off of torn ACLs, and I think they're going to kind of take it a little easy with them when it comes to FUD, which is not full tackling, but contact, kind of a hard punch, but not tackling to the ground. They will tackle to the ground on Thursday, and again during the scrimmage at Akron on, is it Saturday? Yes.
Yeah, I thought Andrew Hawkins looked good today too. It seemed like he made a number of plays, no matter what drill they were running, whether it was 11 on 11s or 7 on 7s. It seemed like Hawkins was just kind of everywhere.
Well, yeah, you know what? I'm sorry, I failed to mention Andrew Hawkins because it's almost just a given now that he just looks good every single day. I mean, he's been, I would have to say, the best receiver of the entire offseason. And somebody that I think the Browns are really going to be able to count on to step up and do some nice things in the absence of a Josh Gordon. He's been extremely consistent.
Now, you mentioned Justin Gilbert. He came up with a pick. With this battle between Gilbert and Screen, it seemed like Screen kind of had the edge just because, he has the experience. He's been there before. But Gilbert, as he gets more comfortable, do you think that he can grab hold of that number 2 spot?
You know what? I would think that he could, but I also do believe that this is a regime that they will not rush their rookies in there, and I think they'll take a look at that and see if they think that Buster can fare better in the very beginning on the outside, and when they move into sub defenses, move Buster to the inside and put Justin on the outside, and that way they can ease Justin Gilbert into the game of football. It's a tough world out there on an island, and he's going to get a lot of attention with Joe Hayden on the other side. So if they feel that the best way to get his feet wet and to get him some experience is to start Buster at first for a little while and then have him go in there in 3 and 4 wides, then maybe they'll do that. But we shall see. We don't know how it's going to play out yet.
First day of pads, like we mentioned, and the guys that you really like to watch in pads, especially the running backs, the linebackers, the defensive line. Those are the guys that just kind of relish that contact, and we got to see some drills involving the running backs and linebackers. When you look at the linebacking core, who has really stood out to you so far?
Well, again, it's like you said, it's only the first day in pads, and I think they have a much better idea of who is standing out or not standing out when we get done with the scrimmage on Saturday. So even though that's only 3 or 4 days away, I think by Saturday we're going to be able to say, wow, the pads have been on for a few days. Now they've done a little bit of live tackling. That's when you really start to see the defenders and who starts to rise to the top, especially guys like the linebackers that are called upon to make those studs or those tackles, whatever the case may be. So, I can't honestly say, that anybody's, really completely jumping out yet because this is fool's gold right now. People make way too much of what goes on in some of these early practices before there are pads on, before you can make any contact, before you can rush the quarterback and those kind of things. Everybody wants to have everything decided and figured out. And I just think that it's very, very early for those kind of evaluations. But, Kirksey did look good today. He's holding his own in there. And anytime you can get a pick in a team drill, that's always a great thing. Carlos Dansby he always stands out. Mingo's looks good. But again, I'll be able to really tell you how those guys look after Saturday.
Yeah, and at the same time, Mary Kay, it's so hard because they're not tackling live right now. They're not taking guys to the ground. Coach Pettine has stressed for a couple days in a row now, and since he came here, whatever it is he says, competitiveness, not combativeness, something like that. So he doesn't want these guys to be real chippy with each other. It's hard to simulate what they're going to do in a game when they're practicing.
It really, really is. And, actually, though, I will say this. I haven't seen tackling to the ground around here for a long time. And we've long talked about that out here, that, how do you practice your tackling? How can you become a good tackler in a game when you don't get to practice it out here? But they are going to do it. And I've been a little surprised about that. So starting on Thursday, they're not going to do it in every period, but they will mix in some live tackling to the ground, and they will do it at the scrimmage on Saturday. Now, will they regret that? If somebody gets hurt in live tackling drills and you lose some of your best guys for the entire season, then you might regret doing it. But Mike Pettine's been around the game for a long time. Now, here's another thing to consider, though. I wonder if he'll look a little differently at live tackling now that he's the head coach instead of the defensive coordinator. It's easy to love live tackling when you're the defensive coordinator. Will he love it when he sees, his receivers, running backs, and whatnot, with all that live contact?
All right, Mary Kay, last question. Of course, there's a day of camp tomorrow and then Wednesday off. You mentioned the energy level at the beginning of camp. I know we're only 3 days in, but at what point for these players do you think camp starts to become a drag? Halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, when do you kind of start to notice players feeling the effects of camp?
You know what? Usually after a couple of days in the pads, I would think that, it's really not been a grueling thing at all for the first couple of days. I actually think that the practices have been a little bit flat. I've seen much crisper, faster, up-tempo practices. These, to me, are starting off a little bit slowly. I wonder if the fans might feel the same way a little bit. But, I would imagine that after a few days in pads, again, we keep pointing to that Saturday scrimmage. I think after that, everybody's going to need a little time in the cold tub.
All right, Mary Kay, we appreciate you taking the time out to talk training camp with us.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right, that'll do it for Browns Insider here on cleveland.com. For Mary Kay Cabot, I'm Dan Labbe. Thanks for watching.